Hello and welcome to Archer Enemies, the Hawkeye after show. I'm Paul. This is Liz. You know us. You've probably seen us before. You've seen us do this before. This is our latest MCU after show. We're going to be with you for every episode of Hawkeye. So for the next 5 weeks. Although today we are going to be talking about episode 1 and 2, but we're not going to do them as one show. We'll be doing them episode 1, episode 2. So you'll be able to find the first 2 episodes straight away on the channel here. I know that might seem a little unusual, but it's just so that all the episodes match up with whatever you guys are watching on Disney Plus. Hopefully by now you've watched both episodes. We may mention things from episode 2 in this first episode, but don't worry about that. The show will be full spoiler, as all our stuff is. So, if you haven't watched it yet, it is an after show for a reason. Go watch it on Disney Plus right now. Hopefully you've read some Hawkeye comics too, because they're all really good. Liz, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Paul?
Yeah, good. First show in a couple of weeks. It's been an interesting break. It has to be said. So, guys, we did disappear for a couple of weeks, largely because, we were going to take a week's break, I think, was what we were aiming for, and it ended up being a bit longer. I had COVID. That was fun. But I'm back to, almost full capacity now. I can almost taste and smell things again. And Liz, of course, you've had a busy kind of couple of weeks at work, and you got Thanksgiving and you got family there and stuff. So that's good. It's good to see you back. Now moving on to the show, episode 1. We're in the kind of grounded, slightly more grounded realities of the kind of Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would say. In fact, even more grounded, even more street level. This kind of, if I think I had to acquaint it to something that we'd seen in not the MCU, but in Marvel TV shows before, I would be looking at the Netflix shows, I think.
Sure, yeah, and it's not as dark in tone, of course, as the Netflix shows, but it is that street level vigilante thing, where you're dealing with non-powered heroes.
And I actually kind of prefer those because I obviously, looking at sort of super powered people and gods and things like that is always fun. I've just been watching some MCU films recently. But there's a great deal of pleasure in seeing the ordinary guy or gal get out there and do their thing, This is an interesting one because we jump back to 2012 at the beginning, and we start with this small scale conflict between Mr. and Mrs. Bishop, Russell Bishop, and do we ever learn her mum's name? I can't remember.
Yes, Eleanor.
Eleanor, thank you. And they're fighting over money, and it's great to see this small scale conflict kick off the show, and there's a lot of nice incidental detail here. I mean, I got a sense that Eleanor is very motivated by financial security, and indeed just having a sort of well balanced, well off life. Right. Whereas Russell is a bit more kind of fly by the seat of his pants and a bit more devil may care, probably because, as we're told, he's kind of grown up rich. And we also see Kate doing something that she does quite a lot throughout the rest of the episodes, which is eavesdrop. Yeah. And she's already quite a prodigious child, judging by the kind of trophies and things she's got in the room. So there's all the nice little layers starting there. And we're quite quickly thrown into the Battle of New York again, which is not something I was expecting to see.
Yeah, but it is a nice tweak for the MCU. It's like, obviously, Kate's origins in the comics are slightly different, but this really makes a lot of sense, and it gives her a reason to idealize Hawkeye. As sort of her hero.
And one of the interesting things about seeing him right up at the front of the show like that is that it connects him to Kate. So the show is teaming them up even before it teams them up, which is
before
really
he even knows
nice,
that she
yeah.
exists. You know,
Yeah.
she's already, you know, she looks out her window and, you know, and it has like, you know, after our brush with death, which, you know, she was saved by an arrow, she looks out and she sees Clint, you know, heroically, you know, shooting arrows at all these giant monsters, and she sees that somebody who doesn't have any powers, you know, can fight back against them and you know, be a superhero, and you know, that sticks with her.
And you know, her dad's already talked to her about, you know, protecting the family and things like that, and there's all those things that are starting to layer in, and you know, then we see them at the funeral, which is very sad because the dad's obviously kind of bit the dust, unfortunately. And there's a chat between her and her mother, and you know, but you do get that sense that Kate is hankering for herodom from a young age, but for the right reasons, I think. It's not necessarily ego that's driving her.
No, it's more you know, she sees that her father, who, you know, was the protector, you know, is gone, and so she feels that she is the one who should step in and be the protector now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought that was a really nice kind of setup from the beginning. And of course, it's good to see the Battle in New York kind of redone, partially with better visual effects. That was good.
It was cool. I mean, you know, it's nice to see, you know, that even in, you know, 10 years time, you know, the technology gets a little better.
Yeah,
but it was just nice, you know, it was nice to see that battle from another perspective, from, you know,
yeah, from the ground level, you know, or the penthouse level, I should say.
well, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just making some more space here so I can put my feet up. I've got a new chair and it's comfortable but slippery. So, yeah, again, it's just a really, really cool setup and gives you everything you need. It's kind of like the beginning of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in that sense, where it's kind of almost implausible that you get everything you need from this one incident, and yet you do. You get, you know, everything is there. It's the type of thing that can really only happen in movies and in TV. We move on to the opening credits, which are kind of very David Aha style. There is a lot of controversy. I don't know if you've caught any of this online. I know you've been
busy. That he hasn't been credited enough.
Hasn't been credited and apparently hasn't been paid anything for, despite the fact that they're kind of using his visual style. He's kind of very graphic designy. You know, and he's brilliant, kind of almost comic timing that he's got. Matt Fraction is a consulting producer on this,
right? So he's getting credited. Yeah, all right. So he's getting his dues, but
yeah,
David Aja not so much.
Yeah, which is a real kind of shame. I really like David Aja's stuff, and I've you know had some very brief exchanges with him on Twitter over the seeds and stuff like that, and I really do feel for him, and it is causing major controversy, and I've got a feeling it's something they will fix before the run of this show is out.
Let's hope so. Yeah, I mean, because I mean this you know, this series leans so heavy on that Hawkeye run.
Absolutely. And you know, we also, did you spot the cameo from Jeff the Land Shark?
No.
Yeah. So if in the beginning, when you get a sort of wide shot of Kate's room, you can see Jeff the Land Shark sort of stuffed into, or a shark stuffed into a little basket, a little soft toy. So that was a nice touch.
That's
from
funny.
Kelly Thompson's run, and it apparently has really taken off as a character. I believe there are going to be Jeff the Land Shark plushies.
Oh wow, brilliant!
The hot item. You know, and we jump forward to kind of now. So we're post snap, post blip, post a lot of the stuff, and we're in a university at Stain Tower, which I thought was a nice touch.
Yep.
Because Obadiah Stane obviously, I guess, bequeathed money to
Yeah,
people.
well, there you go. His legacy lives on.
Yeah. I don't know if that'll have any bearing on the plot. And again, you can see Kate already prepping herself to be a superhero. She's got a costume. As she says, you may as well look the part. And I really liked that sequence. I thought it was a good comedic kind of intro to the adult Kate.
Yeah.
Or the older Kate.
And it kind of sums her up, really, because, she just made this, like, incredible shot, but...
destroys a beautiful old clock tower.
Landmark, yeah, exactly, in the process.
Yeah.
She's not quite there yet.
And also, it gives you the pitch of the show perfectly in terms of tone, which is very...
action comedy.
And I actually think closer to... I mean, everyone talked at the beginning when the trailers came out, oh, Die Hard, Die Hard, Die Hard, because, of course, Die Hard is the only thing set at Christmas. But actually, the tone is kind of closer to Shane Black. And very much, again, not quite as dark. They have found their own sort of nice, comfy spot between Shane Black and young adult stuff, I guess.
Right.
And it's a nice, comfortable spot for them to be in, and it's a good spot that I guess that the comics also occupy. When you look at the Kate Bishop stuff and the Hawkeye stuff, I think that's kind of a nice place to be. And what I loved about this stuff as we go to jump from there to New York is you really get to see how gorgeous the cinematography is. It's really beautifully photographed as a show. Whether or not New York, the sort of wider shots are computer generated, I suspect they are. But you get some beautiful kind of shots of the city, and we've got the musical, which seems to have captured everyone's imagination.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean, it was everything I hoped for, Paul. I was not disappointed.
Yeah. And we jump straight into that musical number, which is apparently called "Save the City," but actually, the seems to be called "I Could Do This All Day." it's bizarre that when I found out the name of the song, it's just like, but have you actually listened to what they're singing?
Oh, it was. I mean, and just the expression on Clint's face throughout it was, what made it even more priceless.
And a lot happens again in that sequence. You can see him thinking about Nat. We also learn that he's gone deaf in at least one ear.
Which, is comics accurate that, that he has to wear hearing aids.
Is it really? No, yeah. I don't remember that. Was that in...
That's been going for... Oh, yeah, that's been a thing for quite some time.
Which is interesting when we come to the end of episode 2, really.
To be honest, fans have complained about it over the years. Like, why isn't he? Why don't you have him? With his hearing issues, because it's representative of disability and what have you.
And also, probably what would happen if you did the type of things that he did is
it makes perfect sense. Yeah, they did get his eardrums, damaged, being up and close and personal with as many explosions, etc. As he has been.
And I really love the whole New York stuff, like the whole kind of stuff with the kids. I think was great.
Yeah, there is something about Christmas in New York, so many films, kind of classics, are set in New York, and you just get, all that imagery that you've kind of seen over and over again, and they're talking about going and visiting the big tree, and they go to a musical, they go out for Chinese food. It's
and of course Clint is very uncomfortable with the attention that he gets. We'll get to that in a minute. I mean, we go back to Kate, and you can really get the sense of when she comes back to New York and sees her mum, you can get this sense that Eleanor is trying to make her less like her dad and more like her. And she even kind of says to her about the charity auction, you know, go up and put, you know, Eleanor's wearing a red dress in the scene, and she says to Kate, you know, go up and put on that red dress I put out for you. So it's like right away you get that sense of, you know, moving her from one state to another, and kind of,
and of
making
course Kate,
her,
you know, rejects
yeah,
that, you know, instead she comes in a tux, you know,
well,
as her dad would have, and
it looks like the caterers.
She looks like the caterers, which ends up, you know, becoming a plot point.
Yeah. And we're also introduced to Jack Duquesne here, who is a character from the comics. He's the is it the Crimson Swordsman, I believe, or is it just Swordsman? But he is a character,
right.
From
he's
the
a
comics.
character. Yeah, it will, you know, not, you know, spoilers or anything, but you know, he's a character that you could be familiar with from the comics. Yeah,
and we also meet another character in a bit from the comics related to the Duquesne family. Jack just reminded me of like Omar Sharif. He's sort of Omar Sharif in training, really. Like,
right.
Not as debonair, not as smooth. He's more like the kind of Roger Moore version of Omar Sharif. You know, and we go back to Clint. There's that great scene in the bathroom where he kind of looks down at the urinal and someone scrawled "Thanos is right," which seems to have caused a brief kind of ripple of attention on the internet. Because there was that argument of, hey, Thanos had a point. Of course he didn't. It's stupid to think that way.
Right. But, you know, it kind of plays into some real world, you know, sort of politics, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it could do. But in the Chinese restaurant scene, you see how people kind of dote on Clint because he was part of that team that saved New York.
Right. However, and when he was in the bathroom, like, you know, he gets some guy asking for a selfie while he's at the urinal. Like, you know, he's like, you know, the people, he just really, he just wants to be left alone, basically. He just wants to be having a normal time with his normal family. And, you know, and so whether it's good attention or annoying attention, whatever the attention is, he just doesn't really want it.
You kind of always has got the sense that that's what Clint's been about. I mean, right the way from Age of Ultron, I think.
Right.
You know,
he just wanted to kind of retire and, like, you know, hang out with his family.
And it's great to see Linda Cardinelli back, and of course she's listed as the special guest star for all the episodes, which I think is great because that kind of, you know, as far as I'm concerned, Linda Cardinelli is always the special guest star. She is like this little powerhouse going through so much good TV and film, and just doing a fantastic job whenever she's on screen.
Yeah.
And I'm always pleased to see her show up in anything. One of the things that were interesting in that restaurant scene is you looking at Clint's relationship with his daughter. It's interesting that we've seen him encourage her into
learning how to shoot
more than he does his sons, which I just find really telling. And of course we'll bleed into this show, the relationship with Kate. But you know, I wonder if in a way he's also looking for a replacement for Nat, because, you know, as his daughter points out, she was your best pal, you know, and now she's gone. And I wonder if in a way he's always kind of looking for a replacement. And of course, if rumors are to be believed, we will get
a Black Widow showing up in the show.
Have you seen the interview with Haley Steinfeld on the red carpet for Hawkeye?
No.
There's an interview where the interviewer asks her point blank about, like, basically tries to trick her into saying that yes, Yelena Belova is going to be in this show. Right. And it's really uncomfortable because you can clearly see, like, all the media training kicks in and she navigates the questions really well. But it was just fascinating watching, like, this poor kid. It's like she's only in her 20s, bless her. You know, just get kind of sidelined by this reporter, kind of talking to her about Florence Pugh. But yeah, she wasn't having any of it. It is a funny. I'll send it to you actually.
Okay, yeah.
If I can find it. And you know, back in the sort of charity auction with Kate and her mum, we get Simon Callow, who I was shocked to see arrive in the MCU. Like, if you could have said, you know, pick an actor you would never expect to see.
There you go. They're all, you know, nothing will surprise me these days. You know,
I mean, I don't know. I like to be surprised.
What I mean is, like, completely... you know, it's just like the MCU really doesn't seem to have any, you know, anyone who doesn't want to be in the MCU. And so, you know, at this point, it's like, you know, they're getting A-list, you know, all sorts of classically trained, you know, stage actors, and you know, it's you know,
Harry Styles.
Harry Styles.
And of course, Callow is clearly having a whale of a time being a complete bitch, because he manages to insult both, you know,
Kate, her mother, like everyone.
And we meet Little Armand. I think there's something quite sinister about Little Armand.
Oh yeah, he's creepy.
Kids are always creepy, and I kind of liked their brief interaction. And you know, we learn that Jack and Eleanor are going to get married. Kate doesn't know this yet, but she finds out in the most unfortunate way. And we move on to this sort of charity. Well, first of all, there's the sinister stuff that might be going on between Eleanor and Armand. Like,
right, you know, it's unclear exactly, but they have some private, you know, sort of argument that Kate catches the tail end of without really any context.
And I really don't think, despite what this episode is telling us and what the next episode is telling us, I don't think that the characters that have been set up as the big bads are going to be the big bads. I think it's going to be Eleanor. Possibly.
I think that there's all sorts of directions it could take, you know, at this point. But yeah, there's certainly, you know, I mean, her relationship with, you know, Kate's relationship with her mother is obviously strained. And as you say, her mother is very, you know, sort of swayed by material wealth, and you know, so it really, it could go that way.
And you know, she runs this security company, as we find out later on. But like that could suggest all kinds of things, really. I mean, one, there is that sort of comfort, you can say comfort and security and all that, but also there is something invasive about companies like that. They do invade people's privacy. So I've got to wonder if there's going to be something there. The auction itself was interesting to me, not because of the items that come up for auction later on in it, but the one at the beginning, because if it's a sort of underworld auction of artifacts from various MCU adventures, the first thing we get is a dinosaur skull, and I was like, are they going to do the Savage Land at some point? Like, are we going to get?
I mean, like, is it arbitrary? Like, you know, it's the Savage Land is where like, you know, there are still dinosaurs and what have you. But is it like, you know, I wasn't sure if that was, you know, establishing it as a you know, sort of superhero related thing, or just an obscenely, disgustingly rare thing that you shouldn't be able to buy at a black market auction. You know, so you could kind of look at it either way.
Although I believe they are relatively available. I mean, Leonardo DiCaprio and Nick Cage, I think, are collectors of dinosaur.
Well, yeah, but they're that rich that they could be. So, you know, all the people in this basement apparently were that rich as well. So,
and also, I don't think it's ever really made sort of super clear that Armand and Jack are related. Like, I believe Armand is supposed to be Jack's uncle. Although I'm not really sure it's made sort of like it's made clear by Kate.
Made clear enough, but yeah.
But not really later. One of the things that comes up for sale is the Ronin suit and the Ronin sword. And that becomes a sort of MacGuffin throughout the next sort of 20 minutes or half hour or so, and into the second episode. Clint's reasons for the Ronin suit not wanting to be out there are that it seems to attract a lot of danger because of the things he did whilst wearing it.
And I'm sure there are also psychological reasons that he doesn't want it out there. I mean, it represents a really dark, horrible time for him. I mean, he probably did things that he might not be proud of.
I never really brought the whole Ronin thing. Like, I found it a leap too far for me because I don't necessarily.
Like, I mean, it's a comics thing, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it basically, Clint.
The leap from me, oh, I'm so upset that my wife and kids are gone. I think I'm just gonna go out and murder a bunch of people. Like, I just never, I never kind of brought that, but you know,
it worked for me fine. It was, you know,
how unusual that something in the MCU works for you just fine.
I thought it was cool. I remember seeing it in the trailers for Endgame, and you know, being like, "Oh yeah, Ronin suit, super cool."
And you know, we get the tracksuit mafia for the first time.
They bust in on the auction.
They're kind of looking, but they're not.
They're not there for the Ronin suit. No. They're looking for a watch, and we don't really know too much about the watch as yet.
And it's interesting because now we have two MacGuffins, and I'm not actually sure. Like, is it a MacGuffin too far? We don't know what the watch is or what it does, or maybe it doesn't do anything. Maybe it's just something that someone's asked them to steal. I think it's going to be connected to who we see at the end of. Actually, we'll get to it in episode 2. There's some things I want to maybe say about the watch. We also meet Pizza Dog for the first time.
We do.
Blind in one eye. Bless.
Yep. And he actually, he grabs the watch, doesn't he?
He seems to, yeah. Like, I don't actually get why Kate's chasing him beyond trying to kind of stop him from running out into traffic. It's a very odd thing. There's also something interesting that happens here. Like, Kate is constantly taking on Clint's guises throughout, you know. So she starts off kind of dressed like Hawkeye at the beginning,
but nobody knows who Ronin was. Whether maybe Kate somehow figured it out, but I don't, you know, it's not clear. Actually.
No, I'm not. You know, I think it's done subconsciously, but
I think she just saw there was a suit that she could throw on and, you know, and hide her face and fight the bad guys, and she took the opportunity and did it.
And so we kind of end the episode with Kate sneaking off, escaping the tracksuit mafia with the dog, and sneaking off into Armand's sort of sumptuous New York apartment and finding Armand dead,
murdered.
Yeah, and it's a shame to waste Simon Callow straight away, if indeed he is dead. But I was actually a bit annoyed at that because he's a character I would like to have seen recur.
Well, maybe they could only get him for one episode, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Overall, Liz, I mean, how did you feel about this as an opening episode?
I really thought it was a great bit of setup. You know, it really sets up Kate as a character that you want to root for right away. You know, I think particularly in this first episode, she's kind of the protagonist. You know, it's about both of them, but, you know, a lot more legwork needed to be done to, you know, introduce Kate and, you know, set up her story. You know, because even though the show is called Hawkeye, it's actually really about both of them. Two Hawkeyes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it personally. I thought it was a lot of fun. In looking at them both again, I think it's a better episode than the second one in a way. Although the second one is full of more incident, I felt this one, I don't know, it just kind of worked for me a bit better. But, you know, I might watch them again in like 2 or 3 weeks and feel completely differently.
I think that, I mean, the way I watched it and the way I suspect a lot of people watched it is one straight into the other.
Sure. I actually took a little break for the day. So I watched the first one very early in the morning and then came back to the second in the afternoon, just to give myself a bit of kind of headspace from it. And I kind of rewatched them again this evening. And I found it better for having had that sort of couple of hours.
Little break, yeah.
Yeah. And I assume you watched back to back.
I watched back to back. Oh God, like I couldn't wait an extra second to watch the next episode.
I mean, I'm fine if I know a thing's there. I'll just I'm okay with waiting. But
we'll talk about episode 2.
Yeah. We're going to jump onto episode 2, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We're back in like a few minutes. If you're watching these back to back, the way you may have watched Hawkeye episode 1 and 2, but do check out the Patreon. Check out the web store. All the links are down there. You can follow my my colleague here, my
fine co-host.
You can follow Liz on Twitter at Lucy Jordan. You can see there. Look, there she is, at Lucy Jordan. And you can also catch her excellent website with some of her fantastically concise and funny reviews, LizCJordan.com. And you can follow me at Comic Crush Paul, at the Comic Crush, or you can check out the website Comic Crush. Got some great articles on there. We'll tell you more about that when we come back. We'll see you in a few moments. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.